Shalom, welcome back. So we are continuing on as we work through the Rock of a Sure Foundation. We're up to the NazActs Book 5, Chapter 11. When we left off last time, Yeshua was talking about the appearance of the true prophet, his advent into the creation, and here I think he's initially kind of linking it to the prophet like unto Moses, but then he gets down here toward a little further in, and he's linking it to this prophecy in Genesis 49:10, that he will be waited on by the Gentiles. And so that's kind of where we're picking up. It's just Peter getting into the prophetic predictions of the coming of Messiah. So, picking up in chapter 11, but that which a prophet of the Judeans foretold, that he was to be waited on or waited for by the Gentiles, confirms above measure the faith of truth in him. For if he had said that he was to be waited for by the Judeans, he would not have seemed to prophesy anything extraordinary, that he whose coming had been promised for the salvation of the world should be the object of hope to the people of the same tribe with himself, and to his own nation. For that this would take place would seem rather to be a matter of natural inference, rather than one requiring the grandeur of a prophetic utterance. So in other words, you would expect, if the Judeans were waiting for him, looking for him, praying for him, that when he appeared they would recognize him. You wouldn't expect it to be the Gentiles who were not looking for him to be the ones that accepted him as a savior. But now, whereas the prophets say that all hope which is set forth concerning the salvation of the world and the newness of the kingdom, which is to be established by Messiah, and all things which are declared concerning him are to be transferred to the Gentiles, the grandeur of the prophetic office is confirmed, not according to the sequence of things, but by an incredible fulfillment of the prophecy. For the Judeans from the beginning had understood by most certain tradition that this man should at some time come, by whom all things should be restored, and daily meditating and looking out for his coming, when they saw him amongst them and accomplishing the signs and miracles as had been written about him, being blinded with envy, they could not recognize him when present, in the hope of whom they rejoiced while he was absent. Yet the few of us who were chosen by him understood it. So this daily meditating, the Jews, even to this day, they pray the Shmoneh Esrei, the 18 benedictions, 3 times a day. And so one of those benedictions is for the coming of Messiah, the restoration of the house of David. And actually, I would say several of those 18 prayers can be attributed to him in one way or another. So they pray for him every day, daily meditating, whatever you want to call it. And then he shows up, and they don't recognize him. And he's saying it's because they're blinded with envy. There's a misunderstanding about the socio culture within Judea in the first century. And I've spoken about this quite a bit, particularly in the series I did on who is Esau Edom. So about 150 to 200 years before the coming of Messiah, John Hyrcanus, he was one of the Hashmonean kings. He went into Edom and overthrew Edom and put all of the Edomites into subjection under him. And he declared that they were to either convert to the faith of the Judeans, circumcise themselves and start keeping the Torah, or they would be driven out of their land. And so some of them were sent into exile. The ones that refused to convert, they went into exile. They were pushed up into Turkey, modern-day Turkey. And they worked their way through Turkey and eventually ended up in the area where today we have Ukraine, and kind of mixed themselves in with the Japhetian tribes up there, Gog and Magog and such and so forth. But the main tribe that they mixed with was Ashkenaz. That's why you get these Ashkenazi Jews. So some Edomites went up there. The ones that actually converted and remained in Edom, they just became known as Judeans. Like Josephus goes into some detail about this. They were just known as Jews from that point forward, he says. So over time, these Edomite Jews worked their ways into positions of power, particularly when Rome took over. So the father of Herod, he was named king of Judea, but he never actually ascended to the throne because he died before he could get back to Judea. So Herod the Great became king of Judea, and so then that's kind of how Herod came to power. Herod was an Edomite. He was appointing the temple priests. They were not Levitical Aaronic priests. They were Edomite priests. They were put into those positions by Herod. Now, some of the lower level priests, they were Israelites, but the higher level ones, the chief priests and such, they were Edomites. So anyway, in the prophecies, Messiah is said to be coming to destroy Edom. He's not said that he's going to come and destroy Rome. Literally every movie, every TV series ever made about Jesus portrays the Romans as being the target of the Messiah. Oh, yeah, the Judeans thought that he was going to come and overthrow Rome. No, they thought he was going to come and overthrow Edom. The Israelites were subjected to Edom. Now, Edom was in their position of power because of Rome. They were appointed to those positions of authority because of Rome. But it was the Edomites who were the ones that were really harassing the Judeans. So these Pharisees and Sadducees, most of them were Edomites. So they didn't want to have the Messiah come because they knew the prophecies were that the Messiah was going to overthrow Edom. That's why they were blinded with envy. That's why they couldn't recognize him. That's probably why they killed him, because they knew that he was there to destroy them. And the thing is, you won't find, it's almost impossible to find this information. The only way you can really get it is to go to the original sources, like Josephus, and I think one of the Maccabean texts speaks about it too. But it's like you're not going to get it through watching any type of documentary. You're not going to get it by watching some special on the History Channel or something like that, because they all say the same thing. Rome was the enemy. Rome was the enemy. No, how many times do you see Jesus getting into it with the Romans? Do you see that at all? The only time he's even interacting with the Romans, well, I won't say the only time, but the primary times that you see him interacting with the Romans is because he was drugged there by the Judeans, by the Edomite Jews. I don't read the Gospels and see Rome as being the target of anything. I see Rome as just being like a side player in the whole thing. But the arguments, the confrontations between the Messiah and someone else, it's always Messiah confronting the Edomite Jews. But for some reason, people think that Rome was the enemy. Rome wasn't the target of Messiah. The only reason that Rome really even got involved, like in the crucifixion, was because of the Judeans. They demanded it. It's like today. Like, why are we, the United States, why is the United States bombing Syria? Is it because the Syrians attacked us? No. It's because the Judeans, the Israelis, drugged Syria before the United States and demanded judgment. It's the same game. It's being played again. They always want to get someone else to fight their battles for them. But this happened by the providence of Yahweh. that the knowledge of this good one should be handed over to the Gentiles, and those who had never heard of him nor had learned from the prophets should acknowledge him, while those who had acknowledged him in their daily meditation should not know him. For behold, by you who are now present and desire to hear the doctrines of his faith, and to know what and how and of what sort is his coming, the prophetic truth is fulfilled. For this is what the prophets foretold, that he is to be sought for by you who never heard of him. And therefore, seeing that the prophetic sayings are fulfilled even in yourselves, you rightly believe in him alone. You rightly wait for him. You rightly inquire concerning him, that you not only may wait for him, but also believing you may obtain the inheritance of his kingdom, according to what he himself said, that everyone is made the servant of him to whom he yields subjection. Wherefore, awake. In this, everyone is made servant of him to whom he yields subjection. Let's talk about this for a minute. So, who is your Messiah? If you submit yourself to the Messiah, like whoever you submit to, that's who your authority is. That's who your king is. So if you submit yourself to the god of money, the god of mammon, that's who your God is. That's he to whom you've subjected yourself. It is not who you declare your allegiance to with your mouth. It's who you subject yourself to. It's who you obey. So you can say that you obey somebody, but you're not necessarily yielding subjection to them if you don't obey them. So there's lots of people that can call Yeshua Lord, Lord, but if they don't subject themselves to him, if they don't obey him, they're just giving him lip service. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, but do not the things which I say? When those people are standing before the king, he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. I never knew you. This falls kind of into line with what I was talking about yesterday. People think they can fool God, right? Oh, well, if I never actually verbally admit that I know what I know, then I'm not going to be judged for it. It's kind of the same thing. If I verbally say that I'm following Jesus, but then I'm really following another master, I'm still going to, it's like covering all your bases, right? You think you're still going to get in. It's not the way it works. You got to subject yourself. That's why I'm so adamant about the verb pisteo, particularly in the Gospel of John, because it's been mistranslated as believe. It should be obey most of the time. It can mean just believe. It can mean, but it can also mean obey. And so there's instances where it should be translated as obey if it's in regards to a person. Like you can believe a statement, but if you're going to pisteo a person, you're accepting them, you're submitting yourself to them, you're obeying unto them. And that's the point that I've tried to make with regards to speaking about Paul, because Paul comes around and he's talking a different gospel. He's presenting, in fact, the polar opposite as to what Jesus says. Yeshua, he's all about a works-based salvation. Christians today consider a works-based salvation anathema. They'll call you a heretic if you think that you're going to get anywhere with a works-based salvation type of gospel. They'll challenge you on it. Oh, so you're saying that you can earn your salvation through works? I'm not saying that. Jesus said that. I'm just repeating what he said. You read through the Gospels, man, it's all about works. Read the Sermon on the Mount. It's all about works. And the church converted the Sermon on the Mount to just a statement of beliefs over the first 200 years. You come out of the Council of Nicaea, and what do they have? They have a whole list of creeds and statements that you have to believe, but there's no works listed. There's nothing for you to do other than repeating their mantras. So who are you submitting yourself to? Do you submit yourself to Yeshua to follow his works-based salvation? If you love me, keep my commandments, do the will of my Father. If you do, then you're on the right path. You're on that narrow little path that's going, a little footpath going through the hills that few find. But if you're believing, and especially if you're actually trying to convert others to this dead gospel with no works, belief only, then you're probably flying down that highway to hell, surrounded by billions of people thinking that you're going the right direction. It's not the right direction. You want to go the other way. Works-based salvation. If you subject yourself to Paul, then you're declaring Paul to be your Messiah. Paul tells us that he was possessed by an angel of Satan. He says that in 2 Corinthians 12:9. Possessed by an angel of Satan. And I got an angel of Satan in my flesh. Now the translators, they cleaned it up a little bit, tone it down. They say that it's a messenger of Satan. But go and look in the Greek, and you'll see that word for messenger is angelos. Angel of Satan. Some high-level demon is what it sounds like to me. And in fact, Paul's Jesus refuses to cast out the angelos of Satan, angelos satana, which doesn't sound to me like the Jesus of the gospel. The Jesus of the gospel was casting out every demon he would confront. The Jesus of the Gospels gave all of his apostles power and authority over demons. He gave his apostles the power to heal. And then you have Paul come along, and Paul's possessed by an angel. He can't cast it out himself. He doesn't have the authority. But Jesus gave that authority. Well, maybe Paul's following a different Jesus. Paul's Jesus refuses to cast out Satan. So go back to the Gospels and see if you can solve the riddle as to who Paul's Jesus is, because it ain't the Jesus of the Gospels. The Jesus of the Gospel says that Satan doesn't cast out Satan. Paul's got an angelos satana in him, and his Jesus is refusing to cast it out. That kind of narrows down the possibility of who Paul's Jesus is. Again, it's not the Jesus of the Gospel. The Jesus of the Gospel gives his apostles authority over demons. Paul obviously didn't have that authority. He couldn't even save himself. So if you submit yourself to Paul, who are you really submitting to? You're submitting yourself to Paul's Jesus. Paul's Jesus is not the Jesus of the Gospels. Beware. When I first came to this understanding about Paul, there was a brief moment where I thought, well, maybe there's like I don't know, not really a compromise, but maybe there's like a middle ground where there's some things that Paul said that's worth keeping, but he's just wrong on some things. But the thing is, like, the more I studied it, the more I realized there is no middle ground with that. There is none. You either reject Paul outright, or you're in that danger zone. There's things that Paul says, and again, like I connect it to earthly things. There's earthly things that Paul says. About like I've said before, his whole thing about when you become a man, you put away the childish things. Yeah, I think that's good advice for you physically. Like, you don't need to be There's a lot of men out there today that are playing with like toys, and they've got shelves full of these little dolls like Transformers and crap that they've been saving. Their little collector's items. And that movie, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, where he has all those collections of figurines and stuff. There are men out there that actually live like that. Those men, they need that advice. They need to put away the childish stuff. They need to go ahead and sell that stuff. You need to move on to be a man, to act like a man. I think the same could be said about playing with toys, like video games. Video games are toys, man. If you're a man, you need to put away the toys. I'm just going to say it. There's probably going to be some people that don't like to hear that. It's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but it's the truth. If you're still playing with toys, you need to grow up. But see, that's advice. That's good advice for life. That's not good spiritual advice. Jesus says that we need to approach the kingdom of heaven like little children. So in the case of a spiritual matter, it's good to be like little kids, little children. You're unassuming. You don't have a whole bunch of expectations that God has to fit into. You don't put God into a box. You're open to experiencing Him and knowing Him. So you shouldn't follow, so you start like accepting things that Paul says, even things that on the surface are good things, but you don't want to apply any of that to your spiritual walk. Paul talking about how he was deceptive to people, and he pretended to be as one under the law to those under the law, and he acted like he was without the law to those without the law, and basically lying to people and misleading people. That's not good advice. That's not good advice at all. Man, you start like absorbing some of that stuff into your mind. It affects your behavior. Jesus tells you, these are the things that pollute the body and spirit. When he's, I think it's in Mark chapter 5, when he's talking about them eating bread with unwashed hands, and he starts naming off these things, and a lot of the things that he names off that corrupt the body, it's deception, false testimonies, and lies, and manipulations, things like that. In fact, almost everything he says there can directly be attributed to Paul, from Paul's own writings, things that he admits to doing. Blasphemies, and the only thing is, I think Yeshua says something about fornications, but Paul doesn't actually admit to fornicating, but other than that, like he false testimony is one of them. Paul goes before the Sanhedrin. He's in a court of law, and he lies repeatedly. Oh, I'm here on trial because I believe in the resurrection. That's a lie. He was lying. He was lying to cause division. That's not a thing of God. When did Jesus ever lie? When was Jesus ever pulled before any magistrate or any judge and sat there and lied to them? Never did it. Anyway, wherefore awake and take to yourselves our Lord and God, even that Lord who is Lord both of heaven and earth, and conform yourselves to his image and likeness, as the true prophet himself teaches, saying, be you merciful, as also your heavenly Father is merciful, who makes his sun to rise upon the good and the evil, and rains upon the just and the unjust. Imitate him, therefore, and fear him, as the commandment is given to men. You shall worship Yahweh your God, and him only shall you serve. For it is profitable to you to serve the Master alone, that through him, knowing the one God, you may be freed from the many whom you have vainly feared. For he who fears not Yahweh, the creator of all, but fears those whom he himself with his own hands has made, what does he do but make himself subject to a vain and senseless fear, and render himself more vile and wretched than those very things, the fear of which he has conceived in his mind? but rather by the goodness of him who invites you, return to your former nobleness by good deeds, and show that you bear the image of your Creator, that by contemplation of his likeness you may be believed to be even his sons. I think that this whole thing with the end times, like the book of Revelation, the whole industry surrounding that, is it really has become a type of like a negative idol in a way, like it's another god that's hanging over you, not you personally, but the people who believe in this future coming of the book of Revelation. It's and a lot of it's just been created in their own mind, and it's due to this misunderstanding. One of the problems with many Christians is they tend to take things literally that are obviously meant to be symbolic, and they take things symbolically. They spiritualize away things that are meant to be taken literally, and when you do that, you corrupt your understanding of things. For he who fears not Yahweh, the Creator of all, but fears those whom he himself with his own hands has made. This, man, I could go into a lot of different things right now. But all these various, conspiracies. Do conspiracies exist? Absolutely. Are there forces of darkness out there that are conspiring to do horrible things to us? Absolutely. But sometimes people take it a little too far with their worry and concern about everything being a danger. When I first came into the Hebraic roots movement, it was like everything was pagan. It's like, oh man, table salt. Don't you know the history of table salt, that it's rooted in the worship of Astarte or something? I mean, it's a constant something. There's always something. And really the whole Left Behind series, the Rapture Doctrine, all of that is just, it's this fear of something that's been created by the mind of man. Fears those whom he himself with his own hand has made. How about his mind? Fears what his own mind has made, what his mind is made of. I'm just saying, just be careful with some of this stuff. It's you don't have to worry about everything. You don't have to be afraid to use table salt. I think table salt is okay. But rather by the goodness of him who invites you, return to your former nobleness, and by good deeds show that you bear the image of your Creator, that by contemplation of his likeness you may be believed to be even his only sons. Just one of the reasons that I made that whole series on the book of Revelation is I want you guys to, whoever's listening to my channel, I want you to know that, man, 90% of that or more has already happened. Like, what's coming up is the Gog-Magog war. And I believe it's going to be started. The Edomite Jews are going to be heavily involved in it. Starting it. And, but if you go to Ezekiel, I believe it's Ezekiel 18 and 19 that talk about the Gog-Magog war. In those chapters, there is a heavy emphasis on God's deliverance in that. So when the Gog-Magog war comes up, it is going to be terrifying, it's going to be destructive, it's going to be frightening, but in the midst of it, God directly intervenes. And you should go read it, because it's not, the way it reads, he's going to intervene in such a way that there's no doubt that it was him. Like, I think that you're actually going to see the real power of God in that. You may even see angels and spiritual forces manifesting and fighting against the enemy. So there's nothing to fear in the Gog-Magog war. When it happens, yeah, I mean, there may be some concern, like, oh, I hope I don't die, I hope I get to see the show, but God's deliverance is very much emphasized in it. Probably more so than in any type of like wartime prophecy. I don't know that there's any other wartime type of prophecy that does more to emphasize God's intervention and salvation acting physically before us than in the Gog-Magog war. And so, according to the book of Revelation, that's really what we're waiting on now. Satan's going to go forth to deceive the nations. If you're paying any attention at all, you can see that that's obviously happening. So Gog-Magog war is around the corner somewhere. I was wondering if it was going to be kicked off with this whole Israel-Syria conflict. Like, I was just kind of sitting there thinking, like, man, I wonder, Gog and Magog, like, this land of Magog, where is that? That's in Ukraine. Ezekiel says that at the end times, Edom is taking 2 nations. These 2 nations shall be mine, Edom says. Which 2 nations is Edom trying to take over right now? Well, it's taking over, Israel. So that's one nation. The other nation is Ukraine. I don't know if you've noticed the involvement in it with this, with the Edomites, but the Edomites are trying to take over Ukraine. That's the whole plan. They consider it to be their second ancient homeland because that's where the Khazarian kingdom was. So the Ashkenazi Jews are very much wanting Ukraine. That's the second nation. Like, there's so many prophetic fulfillments that are going on right now, and people are just oblivious to it. I'm kind of watching this thing like that meme with Michael Jackson in the theater eating popcorn, like just waiting to watch the show. That's me. Like, I see all this stuff starting to come together in a way that, man, this looks pretty freaking cogent as to what is being called for in the book of Ezekiel surrounding the Gog-Magog war. And when there's the prophecy in Ezekiel 36 about Edom getting together with the United Nations and giving themselves Israel, it's maybe 3 or 4 verses later that he's saying, but when this happens, just know that it's only temporary, because my children, true biblical Israel, the real Israelites, they're about to come home. So this Edomite nation that they're in the Middle East, that's not an Israelite nation. That's a false Israel. But when you see the false Israel, know that the real Israel is about to be regathered. So yeah, sitting there waiting for the show. That Michael Jackson meme, sitting there eating popcorn in the theater. That's me. And the thing is, most people are directed by these other images that their own mind has made up, their own hands have created. When the true story, the big show, is getting ready to kick off, and most people don't even know. Begin, therefore, to cast out of your minds the vain ideas of idols and your useless and empty fears, that by the same time you might also escape the condition of unrighteous bondage. For those have become your lords, who could not even have been profitable servants for you. For how should lifeless images seem fit even to serve you, when they can neither hear nor see nor feel anything? Yea, even the material of which they are made, whether it be gold or silver or even brass or wood, though it might have profited you for necessary uses, you have rendered wholly inefficient and useless by fashioning gods out of it. We therefore declare to you the true worship of God, and at the same time to warn and exhort the worshippers that by good deeds they imitate him whom they worship, and hasten to return to his image and likeness, as we've said before. But I should like if those who worship idols would tell me, if they wish to become like those whom they worship. Does any one of you wish to see in such sort as they see, or to hear after the manner of their hearing, or to have such understanding as they have? Far be this from any one of my hearers, for this should rather be thought a curse and a reproach to a man who bears in himself the image of God, although he has lost the likeness. What sort of gods, then, are they to be reckoned, the imitation of whom would be execrable to their worshippers, and to have whose likeness would be a reproach? What then? Melt your useless images and make useful vessels. Melt the unserviceable and inactive metal and make implements fit for use of man. Okay, so how would we take this today? You know, like what I was saying earlier about the fear and all these various conspiracies that we are living in fear of, and constantly looking for something wrong with everything, when it's not even I don't think necessary, some of the things that people fear. Melt that stuff down, man. Just take it out of your mind. It's like the fear of the Antichrist, when you're looking in the book of Revelation at stuff that's already been fulfilled. Yeah, there may be a pattern to it. It's good to be familiar with it. But the thing to focus on is, like Peter says, that there's going to be this doctrine of 10 pairs. And so we're at the point now we should be looking for the 10th pair. I think we should be familiar with the 9th pair, because the 9th pair is going to help you to make the correct decision on the 10th pair. But what you should be looking for is, there's going to be this person called the Antichrist who's going to appear. Okay, cool. Look for the guy claiming to be Messiah who's going to be misleading people. There's a guy right now springing up. I've seen several videos of him. Like, I haven't actually watched them, to be honest with you, but he's claiming to be the second coming of Messiah, gathering together a bit of a following. Okay, so we know that he's going to appear first. Whether that's him or not, it remains to be seen. I mean, it could be, or just could be some kook that's going to disappear in a couple of years. But either way, the only reason you should be looking for that is so that you can look for the true Messiah coming later. But all these other conspiracy theories and raptures and things that are not biblical, that we've bought into, melt that stuff down, throw it into the trash heap, make something serviceable out of it. In the same way that Peter's urging the people to do that with their useless idols, take this worthless thing, melt it down, and turn it into something useful. Take the irrational fears, melt them down, and make something useful out of it. Take the truth of what's already happened, and then once you study that out and realize it's already happened, then okay, now you're closer to the truth. Now start working on figuring out what's really going to happen, instead of living in fear of stuff that's already happened years ago. There's people out there still looking for some chip to be put in your hand with the 666 on it, but that stuff was all fulfilled with a tax stamp 2,000 years ago. It's already happened. Yeah, there may be something similar to that. Like, there's plenty of stuff out there today that's got the 666 thing on it. Monster energy drinks, the little thing that looks like a scratch on a Monster energy drink, that's 3 Vavs. The Vav is the Hebrew letter 6. So it's literally a 666 on Monster energy drinks. I wouldn't personally drink a Monster energy drink. I'm not going to walk around with that can in my hand that has 666 on it. I'm not stupid, but at the same time, I'm not fearful of the drink. I just don't drink it. But these same people who are scared to death of getting a chip in their hand, they're walking around with the mark of the beast in their hand, sipping on it, taking it into the body. It's like, use discernment, but don't be afraid of everything. And the thing is, I wouldn't drink Monster Energy even if it didn't come with the 666 right on the can. I still wouldn't drink it. I just don't drink any of that crap. It's all bad for you. But some will say man's laws do not allow us. And he says, well, for it is human laws and not their own power that prevents it. What kind of gods, then, are those which are defended by human laws and not by their own energies? And so also they are preserved from thieves by watchdogs and the protection of bolts, and at least if they be of silver or gold or even of brass, for those that are of stone and earthenware, protected by their own worthlessness. For no one will steal a stone or crockery god, hence those seem to be more miserable, whose more precious metal exposes them to the greater danger. Since then they cannot be stolen, since they must be guarded by men, since they can be melted and weighed out, and forged with hammers ought men possessed of understanding to hold them as gods. Oh, and to what wretched plight the understanding of man has fallen! For if it is reckoned the greatest folly to fear the dead, what shall we judge of those who fear something that is worse than the dead are? For those images are not even to be reckoned among the number of the dead, because they were never alive. Even the sepulchres of the dead are preferable to them, since although they are now dead, yet they once had life. But those whom you worship never possessed even such base life as is in all, the life of frogs and owls. But why say more about them, since it is enough to say to him who adores him, do you not see that he whom you adore sees not, hears that he whom you adore hears not, and understands that he understands not? For he is the work of a man's hand, and necessarily is void of understanding. You therefore worship a God without sense, whereas every one who has sense believes that not even those things are to be worshipped which have been made by God and have sense, such as the sun, the moon, the stars, and all things that are in heaven and upon earth. For they think it reasonable not those things which have been made for the service of the world, but the Creator of those things themselves and of the whole world should be worshipped. For even those things rejoice when he is adored and worshipped, and do not take it well that the honor of the Creator should be bestowed upon the creature. For the worship of God alone is accountable to them, who alone is uncreated, and all things also are his creatures. For as it belongs to him who alone is uncreated to be God, so everything that has been created is not fully God, or not truly God. So why does Yeshua say that his Father is the only true God? Because Yeshua was created. He was created by the Father who was uncreated. So Yeshua says, my Father is greater than I. It doesn't mean that Yeshua is only a human being and nothing more, as some people will make that accusation. It just means he's not the true God. The power that Yeshua has, it comes from his Father. It's his Father working through him. Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent and his cunning suggestions, which deceives you, as it were, by wisdom. I think this might be a good place to stop. I think he's getting ready to change the subject and move into another, some different information. So maybe this is a good place to stop, and we'll go ahead and pick it up next time. We got up through chapter 16. We will start next time with chapter 17. Thank you for listening. Shalom.